Hey everyone, this is Dale Berkebile, and today we are going to be doing another episode of the Living Your Best Life. And this series is something that I put together to talk to all kinds of unique, interesting, wonderful, creative, smart, just everyday people and pick their brain a little bit, ask them how they live their best life. And part of the reason that I've done this is, or started this, is because I believe everybody has a story to tell, and I believe everybody can be an inspiration. And so I've been having a lot of fun interviewing these people, and today we have a friend on, Jennifer Gale, and so welcome, Jennifer. Thank you so much for being on, and would you tell us a little bit about yourself and where you're coming from?
Yeah, I'm Jennifer, and I live currently in southwestern Victoria in Australia. So in the cold part of Australia, because there are some near the forest, so beautiful part of the world. And you can see boxes behind me because I'm just about to move, which is another story altogether. But so as you can see, am not a spring chicken. But what do I do? I have children and grandchildren and a husband, and I love gardening and all those kind of things. But I have two businesses, one of which is a health consulting business where I do work because I was a senior in health for a long time, where I work with organisations or people, I mentor, all of those kind of things in the health sphere. And one, Pink Hat Digital, which is a digital company that builds websites, landing pages, automations, MailChimp sequences, all kinds of things. Anything at all that's digital, I will do. So that's me.
Wonderful, wonderful. Well, welcome. I'm glad you're here.
Me too.
Okay. So the first question that I always ask people, this is uh, the brand that I'm building here is called Hellagood Life. Um, so one of the questions I ask is, what does Hellagood Life mean to you? I know everyone has a different take on what the terms mean, but in your space, what does it
What
mean in
does that
your
mean? So in my mind, it means why not have a good life?
right?
That's really what it means. Why not have a good life? And I think for me and for many other people, um, that's the struggle. I think to actually try and have a good life. And what does the struggles to try and figure out what it looks like for you. And for me, that's my struggle. What does a good life look like? But yeah, why not have a good life? Why not?
Why not?
Why do we all struggle so much? It's not that hard. It shouldn't be that hard. It doesn't look that hard, but we make it so hard for ourselves. And I'm the biggest defender here, making it hard for myself to be happy. And I don't mean happy in that, sense, happy, but, content and calm and at one with yourself and what you're doing and all that. That's what that means, hell, a good life. It means, hell, why not have a good life?
Right. I
Even though
love
you haven't put those words in there.
Well, I love everyone's take on things, and everyone's a little bit different, and every time it's pretty much exactly right. And
That's
so
good.
one of the things that I think is interesting too is, you kind of tapped on this a little bit. Everyone's journey is different, right? So we have to do some of the self work to figure that out for ourselves. Uh,
Oh, yes.
and
Uh,
yeah, but we also have to not make it too difficult, right? It's easy to overcomplicate things, or whatever. But
yes, I've definitely been, that's definitely been one of my problems. I mean, I'm 63 now, and I would say I've tried to complicate my life up until the age of 60 quite well. you know, I've done a brilliant job if were having a score for that. It's yeah, it's been but I've not really sat back and looked at it as a journey, really. But wow, I always tell, if I'm talking to groups, I always, particularly young people, I always tell people how I climbed out of the window and ran away from home when I was 16. And never, like, it's just something that I did. And I never really think about what that looks like to other people. But it must look pretty shocking, really. Here's this 16-year-old girl running away from home. Wow. But yeah, and I think my life really, I really started the complicated life then. That was the beginning of the complications, really. And I just kept on going, really, until I got to about 60. And then, I don't know, it's changed. A lot's changed. A lot's changed since I started meditating. That's the bestest thing that I've done. Yeah, so it is a long journey.
Well, I have this other sort of oddball question that I throw out at people. So basically what I do is I'm going to ask 3 questions, and you can pick and choose whichever one sounds good, or we can just kind of wing it and see where it goes. So the first question is, where do you find the most joy in life? The second question is, what inspires you? And then the third question is, what is your superpower? So any of those kind of pique your interest or strike a chord today?
Gosh, probably one of the first 2. I don't know. We'll start with the first one.
Okay.
What brings me most joy?
Yeah.
And I've been taking note of what brings me joy, because I think I'm in a transition stage of my life, and I've been taking note of when I'm happy, really happy in myself. And when I'm really happy in myself is when I'm in my garden. And, it's just the most joyous thing for me, because this year I've mastered growing seeds. So this is my first crop of vegetables that I've grown from seed, and I use heirloom seed because there's an heirloom seed club here in Australia. So growing heirloom seeds, and I harvested my first turnips a week or so ago, and yeah, being in the garden gives me incredible pleasure. Also cooking. I love cooking as well. I love my pickling, but again, the pickling's been because I had excess crops. I do love cooking, and I am a good cook, but I'm too good a cook, so I have to stop it because I make cakes and eat them and all those things. But I think the thing that gives me the most joy is being outside in my garden or in nature. It doesn't have to be my garden, but in nature, and seeing nature, like beautiful trees, and I really love that. It's just, you can't beat it. Really, you can feel so calm when you're lying under a tree or on the grass. I often lie on the grass under my trees, and like a little kid. It's just beautiful. That is one of my favorite things. Brings me lots of joy.
Wonderful, wonderful. Yeah, I'm a nature fan myself, and it's just hard for me to beat being in nature. And I think that on the gardening side of things, I think there's also something that's really pleasurable about the kind of the journey a little bit of kind of going from planting the seed and then nurturing, and kind of it's like it's part of you're engaged in the whole process, right? And then you get to the end and you get those turnips or whatever.
Or flowers. Yes, I love roses. I'm a big rose person.
There you go.
I love roses. It's I've got beautiful roses in this house. I've put some beautiful ones in, and when I was a little girl, I used to read those fairy tale books, Snow White and Rose Red and all those, and they always had a rose growing either side of the door. There was a red rose and white rose. So in this house, I've actually managed to grow some climbing roses either side of a window in my lounge room, and that's where we sit and look at the garden. So in the summer this year, I had beautiful roses, and they kind of framed the garden from the inside. So that was pretty. I have not managed to do that before, so that's pretty special. It's really gorgeous. Yeah.
It sounds beautiful.
It is. It is. And of course, they smell lovely too, so that's nice.
Right, right. Well, good.
You want me to answer the other two or just one?
It's up to you. So that's why it's kind of a little a curveball. It's one of those things that I just threw out. I like to uh, give a little back and forth on what works for you, and and
Yep.
so every experience is a little bit different, and you know, I have other questions, and we can move on, or we
Let's
can
move
jump.
on then.
Okay,
Let's move on. Yep.
wonderful. So, uh, so one of the next questions that I have is, what is one of your biggest successes or an area that you're most proud of in life?
Mm. It's not one thing. I'm most proud of the number of people who I've helped grow in their careers. That's the thing I'm most proud of. There are people like I lived next door to somebody once who was working in an airline ticketing office or something like that, and we were having a cup of tea, and she said, "Oh, I've always wanted to be a nurse," and I said, "Well, why aren't you?" "Oh, never really, never really could do that," and now she's a nurse. So we sat down and we looked at all the colleges online and all that kind of stuff. And I've done that quite a few times. Sorry, here's my dog. I've done that quite a few times. That's probably the thing. And lots of other people throughout my life I've helped just make it easier for the people behind me, women mostly, to kind of learn faster than I had to. Because when I started out my career, there really weren't any women in senior executive, only ever a matron. There was no women anywhere else. And there really weren't many role models either for how you might be. So I learned it mostly from books.
Oh yeah.
And then, I think that's something I am most proud of. And I often see people, they come on the telly or they're talking or something, and I think, oh, yes, I remember. I remember when we had that conversation about, oh, I don't think I could do that. It's quite interesting.
That's
Yeah,
awesome.
so that's what I'm most proud of the people, the just helping someone and watching them grow. Really watching them grow, I get lots of pleasure out of that. Some people pay me to do that, but I do it for nothing a lot of the time. It's just it's so good because if I'd had somebody that I could talk to, that would have made my life so much easier.
Sure.
I wouldn't have made quite so. Mind you, the mistakes always make you. I had a little map that I mapped out, but it's good to be able to, at this age, be able to talk with some authority about, well, you do this, you can do that, and this is what it means, and yeah, it's good. That's what I love. That's what I'm most proud of, I think.
Yeah, that's wonderful. I think it's always great when we can help people out and
Mm,
kind of guide them to that next step, or do whatever,
yeah,
especially if we are seasoned and have some experience, and like you're saying, uh not having some of those role models. And I know in my own life, I've had a few role models that were really wonderful, and it was I look back on the difference between all the difficult work that I did up until those times, and how much easier it was having someone to bounce ideas off
yeah.
of, and get a little bit of support here and there and that sort of thing. And so, um,
Yeah, it's often just having someone to talk to,
right,
particularly as you become more, like a lot of the people I work with become quite, leaders and things like that, and executive roles, and they're very lonely roles. And you can become really isolated. It's a very lonely role. So,
right,
yeah, just having
right.
someone to chat with, so that you don't think you're going mad or you're on the right track, or, because you can think you're going mad. And for someone else to say, yes, you are actually going mad, or no, you're not going mad, you need to look at it in a different way, is really good. Yeah, I love doing
Yeah,
that. Drains you, so it's quite draining. But emotionally draining. I find it very emotionally draining, but it's so good.
Sure, sure. Interesting. Okay. Well, um, so the next question that I usually ask is, what is one of the biggest hurdles or challenges that you've overcome in life?
Mm. The biggest hurdle or challenge that I've overcome is it's a bit personal, but that's right. Is actually realizing that I had been sexually abused as a child and actually admitting it, owning it, and going and doing the work around it. Because up until that point, I was 50. Up until that, well, no, I wasn't 50. I might have been 45 or something. Up until that point, I had just been running, always moving, always got to do this, got to do that, move forward, do this, do that. And I got to a point where I was really exhausted and I almost had a nervous breakdown. And
Hmm.
when we unpacked it, I'd just been running away from it, which is why I ran away from home, as I said to you before. But it's that's been the biggest hurdle for me personally to overcome. To not, and I definitely am not a victim. Like I don't ever want to be a victim, and I'm not. But it caused me to have behaviours that were injurious to me. Like my behaviours at times was just like it was like self suicide that you didn't die from.
Right.
Lots of really bad habits. And like I said, never sitting with silence or calm, because if you sat, then you probably remember that's what that was all about. Yeah, so I think I'm well and truly over that now, thanks to you and my 164 days. But yes, that was tough. That was really tough. 5 to 10 years, really.
Right. Right. Well, first off, I'm sorry to hear that, that you
Oh,
had to go through that. Um, and I think one of the big things that you touched on that's so important is, doing the work and
the work's hard.
sitting with it and
It's
doing
yeah.
the healing work and all that kind of stuff. That's not easy. And it's very easy to keep those things, avoiding and doing whatever.
Well, I did it well for 40 something years. I'm very good at it. And being a nurse helped that, because when you're a nurse, because I was a nurse in the beginning of my career, you learn to compartmentalize your emotions. Because when I started nursing, you were not allowed to cry or show
Mm,
people you're upset, or, it just wasn't done. And so I learned really early on top of that to compartmentalize my feelings. And
mm,
so I just simply didn't go there. I just
sure.
simply didn't go there. If I felt bad, I found something to do.
Mm.
It just I'm the expert diverter. And if I know now that I do that. So if I find myself doing it, I, stop. And
Sure.
I had this lovely psychologist I worked with for a long time. Two, I've worked with three in my life, but this one, she said to me, there's nothing wrong with staying in bed all day if you really feel like that's what you need to do. There's no law that says you can't. Stay in bed and look after yourself. So, because that's one of my pleasures, staying in bed, and it worked. I can do that. Haven't had to do that for a long time, but
Right.
interesting stuff.
Right.
Interesting stuff. Yeah, hard work, just hard
Right.
work. But I'm so glad I did it.
Well,
So
I
glad.
think that's part of the journey for self-discovery too, is finding out what are the things that we should be doing, maybe that we haven't either given ourselves permission to do
Mm,
or thought was whatever. Who knows what the thing is going to be that's going to be that soothing and the healing and the uh, where we can work on some of this stuff. But boy, I just think that um, it's important to just see that these things are okay, whatever they are, right? Like
yeah.
the in bed and or whatever. we need to take care of
Just
ourselves.
take
It's
care of yourself.
so
Yeah.
dang important.
And I'm so bad at that. I
Well,
am still not that great at taking care of myself, but I am much better at sitting with the discomfort and not looking to mask the discomfort, which is what I've always done. If I
sure.
felt bad, I'd do something to take my mind. Whereas now I'll sit and think, okay, you're feeling bad. What is that about? Why are
Right.
you feeling like that? What do you need to do? And I allow myself to feel bad. I let it happen, and then I move on. Might do a meditation, or I might go and sit in my garden, or whatever. But
Right.
I won't run away from it now. And it makes life a lot harder, can I tell you? It's much better if you don't have any feelings at all. Life is pretty good when you don't feel anything, but it's not good for you.
Right. Right.
I said that to one of the people I worked with. I said, I don't think I like this. I liked it better when I didn't feel anything. It was much better.
Right.
Because, it probably is better, but it's not good for you.
Yeah. Well, and I think that, in my own journey, I think I probably kind of hit a wall and hit depression
Yeah.
because of my just continuing running and doing whatever.
Driven.
And
That's what I'd say. I was driven,
right, I
totally
was
driven.
very driven.
What for?
And not just taking that time to sit with some of those things. And since then, over the last, decade or so, learning to be aware of what's going on and to sit with some of the ugly stuff and not just turn it off and whatever. That's not easy work at all, boy. I'll tell
No,
you.
it is not easy, but it's so much better.
It really is. It's good.
Yeah. So that's probably the biggest thing that's happened to me. There's lots of other things, but
Well, so one of the things that I also ask of people is this is kind of a giving back sort of an idea. So what is one tip that you would share with someone to help them live their best life? Any recommendations or thoughts?
geez, what would I say? I would say, don't worry about it. Just, it's all right. Everything will be all right in the end. Everything is always all right in the end. Tomorrow the sun comes up, and what feels really bad today will not feel quite as bad tomorrow. I think that's probably what I'd say. Have patience, sit and wait. The world will give you. This is what I say to lots of people now. The world will give you what you need, not necessarily what you want, but the world will give you what you need. You need to
Right,
know what it is you need and what you want. So the two things you do need to know, but the world will give you what you need. Might not be in the way you thought, but it will give you what you need.
right, right. That's powerful.
Mm.
Uh, I think that's one of the things too is, I matured in my years starting to understand the difference between wants and needs, right? I mean,
Yep,
that seems very, very simple, and we should all understand that very easily, but we
we
oftentimes
don't.
mix up our wants with our needs. I need this, right?
Yes,
And
yes. I taught my son that very early in his life, and because he's a great saver now, but he often will ring me up, and he's 35. He'll ring me up and say, "There's this great thing here, Mum, and it's this much and blah blah blah." And I know why he's ringing me. He was ringing me to say, "Do you really need that thing? Do you really need that?" More often than not, he doesn't buy it. Hmm. Yes, so yes, it's interesting, isn't it? It did take me a long time to figure that out, but I never believed I would get what I needed. So that moving forward was almost like a grab, really. Now that I think of it, that driven stuff. It's always like, oh, I need to be driven so I wouldn't miss out, so I could get ahead and grab what it was, whatever the elusive thing was. Yeah,
right.
interesting. Yeah, need and
know,
want.
it's interesting from a parent perspective too, because it's easy to see the other piece, the other person's wants not being needs, even though they think they are, and then also
Yes.
trying to step in and try and guide and support and help. I mean, my boys are young, but there's several things that I see that I'm like, you're causing undue stress. Just let that go, man.
Let
It's
it
so much
go.
better. Learn to let this go.
Yes, that's right. That's exactly right. Yes, it's that's the fun part of parenting, being able to watch and guide, I think. Yeah. Funny things. Funny things. My door's a bit open. I'm sorry about that.
um, so if anyone wanted to follow you or connect with you or anything
Oh,
like that, where should
well, well,
people?
I'm on LinkedIn, of course, and I am on Facebook too. Yeah, I don't have a. I've been seriously thinking about having my own blog in the last little while, but I'm not there yet. Maybe when I get my new house, might be inspired. I've been emptying my bookshelves. This is quite funny. I've been emptying my bookshelves, and when I was a young person, I had a really good friend who moved to Fiji. She was Fijian, and her dad was here building. She was an engineer. She moved back, so we became pen pals. And she used to write to me all the naughty things she was doing as a 15-year-old, as 15-year-olds do. And my mother intercepted the letters and banned me from writing to her, which was a silly thing to do. But she banned me from writing to her. And so since then, since I was 15, I've been unable to journal. Never been able to journal because there's that fear that, someone might read it. I once went away to, I did an experiential leadership course at Leicester University. It's very famous. And you go for 2 weeks and they create a virtual organisation. And part of it is your personal journey around, living and breathing, etc., etc. And my support psychologist said, now you're going to have to journal. And I said, I can't journal. So what I did was I wrote a poem every day at the end of the day, and I set it so a piece of music would come into my head for each day that was perfect for the day, and then I'd write a poem to that music. And it
Mm.
was so good. It was really, she thought it was, when I came back and gave it to her, she said, oh my God, look at this. So, yeah, it was really, really powerful. And I'd love to do it again. I used to write a lot of poetry once upon a time. So I'm thinking, but when I packing up all my books, I found 8 brand new empty journals. People love to give them to me. I don't know why they give them to me. I gave 8 away last year. One of my friends came to visit and I said, what would you like, Victoria? Anyway, I said, here, have these. Because she's a mad journaler. And I still found 8 that last weekend. I was cleaning my bookshelf. And I thought, I think maybe the world's trying to tell me something. They're not going away. They need to be filled in. And how am I going to do that? Interesting, funny things. Yeah. So something's telling me I need to be filling them in.
Well, I love the creative approach. I think sometimes, if it's something that's a challenge, maybe there's an
Yeah.
interesting way to do things, like with the music or whatever. I mean, I haven't really, I haven't done like a formal journal per se. I
Mm.
mean, I like post all kinds of random stuff
Yeah.
online, and I write blog articles and different
Yeah.
things like that. But as far as like just kind of my own personal
Yeah.
journaling exercise, it's something that I've thought about doing, but I kind of, I don't know, get started, goes 3 days, and then it kind of
Well,
falls
I
to the
haven't never
wayside.
done the 3 days. I couldn't do
Well,
it.
I don't know that I've made it that far either, really, but
But yes, so the music was perfect because, and I know you love music too. Every day has a song that you can attribute to it for
yeah.
whatever reason at all. A song will pop into your life, into your head. And when you're doing something that intense, like I was doing, of course, there were themes through the day. So that kind of fed into the song. But even now, I could really do that. I could, even if I just straight down, today was bang, he shot me down, or, something like that. I got you, babe, whatever. But yeah, it's being create the creative side of that really helped me a lot. And I drew on them too, like little pictures. I wish I could find it. I've put it somewhere safe. I've moved 3 times since then, so we'll see. We'll see. Yes, you should. I always tell all the people I mentor and work with, they have to journal. I say, I don't journal, but you have to. There's a good reason why I don't journal, but you have to. And they all find it very useful and helpful, and they go back over it and etc. etc. But just funny. Fortunately, I did my nurse's training before they made you journal. So that's good. Now they make you journal as a nurse, which is it's healthy to get it out of your head. That's the thing. When you work in stressful jobs. Yeah. Whereas in my day, we just went out and partied hard.
Right.
That's what we did. We coped in the way we knew how.
Exactly. Yeah.
Because there was no not coping going on in that place. Interesting. Yeah. Okay. Life is an interesting journey. That's true.
It most definitely is. Isn't it funny how you can how we can see some of those things looking back on life and see what was maybe the reality of what was going on and stuff like that. I think in my own heyday of getting crazy and doing all the stuff I was doing at the time, it was just about having fun, really.
Yeah.
Looking back, I'm like, was that really about having fun, or was there some sort of avoidance there? And
absolutely. Avoiding growing up, avoiding feeling, joining together in everyone else's avoiding.
Exactly. It's teamwork. Teamwork makes the dream work, as they say.
Teamwork 101, yes. Funny. Yes. Jeez. So amazing I made it this far, really, now that I think of it. I always say I'm a modern miracle, a modern medicine miracle. I have very severe hypertension, which I have when I was 16. And if I'd been born, 20 years earlier, I probably would never have made it to 21 because I had lovely drugs when I was 16. And I've had a succession of lovely drugs all my life that's kept me alive. Interesting, isn't it? Yeah. Well, that would have been sad. To miss out on some of the things would have been sad.
Yeah.
Others I could have done without, but lots of lovely things that you do in your life. You need to sit and do that. Reminisce. Yeah. That's what digital media is all about. It's really good to look through your photos on your big computer, sit and, go through them all together with your partner. It's fun.
Yeah.
Remember that. Yeah. Remember that. Yeah. Remembering the good times.
It's something that's interesting that I kind of wonder about, so like social media apps and things like that, will pop up reminders. And so it's always a joy, talking to my spouse, and we're kind of, sharing whatever about, I don't know, some event or something in our kids, whatever's going on and stuff like that. But my oldest is like really sort of obsessed with looking at the old photos and stuff like that. And the youngest is probably too young at this point to really be into. I mean, he likes it a little bit, but it's not something that is sort of consuming or whatever. But I wonder how things will be different. Like, I remember growing up, we had photos, right?
Yeah, so photos taken.
Now it's like everything is documented and
everything's visual.
And all the my kids are like, oh, hey, can you take a picture of such and such? And I'm like, that's like so random and just not worth taking a photo of, really. Like, I don't know what, but sometimes, right? And just because they've seen some of that practice and push it out on Facebook or whatever. Can we whatever, push that on, take a picture and put it on Facebook and share? Like, okay. Some of it we do, some of it we don't, but how it's just interesting for me, I think, pondering how things are going to be different when they're sitting with their kids, and what it's going to look like from me sitting with my kids, or even my parents sitting with me as we were, reflecting on those times? Or,
I think I did have proper photographs. Well, I did have proper photographs of my son. But my brother has a new little grandson. He's 2. Yeah, Charlie's 2. And he was quite distressed that there's no, he actually has printed pictures. So, because everything's digital, what happens if the digital blows up? There's nothing left. There's nothing tangible in your hand.
right.
No, fair enough. Fair enough. But don't think I've printed a picture for a very long time.
Yeah. It's funny, for Christmas, I think my mother-in-law, who is now gone, did like a little, what do they call it? Shutterfly or whatever it is, like one of
Yep.
those print out
Yep.
a little book of different
Yeah.
photos and stuff like that. And so, my son, my oldest, would flip through those and look at family and stuff like that, like real physical, which is interesting because it's kind of different in this day and age. But we hadn't really done anything like that for my youngest, but feel like we should probably pull some stuff together
You
and
probably should. Yes.
something out so he can,
He
have
can
something that's
enjoy
a
it
little
as
more
well.
focused in his lifetime.
Because otherwise he'll be saying, why did you do it for him and not me?
I'm sure there'll be plenty of that probably throughout.
Yes. The curse of being second. Yes.
Well, okay, my friend, thank you so much for your time and for sitting with me to answering some questions and sharing with us. And I'll just say to the viewers, if you liked anything here, please like and share. If you're over on YouTube, you can subscribe to the channel. And if you have an interest in being on the show, I welcome you to just say, hey, I'm interested, or comment in the comments and let me know, and I'll reach out to you and we can have a show together. But yeah, Jennifer, thank you so much for joining me this evening
This
and
morning.
talking a little bit. Morning for you, yeah. Going international, that's another thing.
Tomorrow's okay, I'll just tell you that. The world's still here tomorrow. You'll make it.
That's right.
It was lovely. Thank you. And thanks for asking me, Dale. It was lovely.
Yeah, of course.
Good to chat.
Okay, friends, we'll talk to you soon.
See you.